Good afternoon and good morning to those of you that have joined us from overseas. As always, we're just going to leave it a minute or so just to allow everyone to settle in for today's webinar. We will introduce Kathryn, but I'm excited to have Kathryn on today because we haven't run a webinar for a little while, have we?
We haven't. It's been quite, it's been a long time. When was the last one? Beginning of the year?
I think it was. So, I mean, how quick has the year gone? Too quick.
Too quick, but we should do more of these.
Yes. But we're here today. So, as I said, we'll just leave it a little bit longer just for everyone to settle in. I can never be quiet. Do try.
I'm the same. Got to talk. Got to fill that silence void.
We're doing very well here. Okay, Nicola, Kathryn, you ready? You're good to go?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right, so thank you for joining us today. As I said, we're discussing navigating global expansion, mastering compliance and agility. As I said, I'm so happy that we've got Kathryn with us today from GP, and we have Nicola from Alight. So thank you, both of you, for joining us today. Kathryn, would you like to introduce yourself to those that do not yet know you?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking us to join this webinar. I'm Kathryn Barnes. I am a Senior Employment Counsel for GP, specifically focusing on the EMEA region. Been at GP for over 4 years now and have helped build the business to expand in over 200 countries. My role is specifically to make sure that all of our entities, all of the GP entities within EMEA are legally compliant, make sure that immigration matters are dealt with correctly, make sure that employees are hired and managed in line with the laws in each and every country. A difficult task, but it's one that I absolutely adore. And GP, we do amazing things in terms of all of the, fantastic individuals that we hire. We work with customers and help them grow in each and every country. So it's a wonderful place to be. So thanks, Mel, for asking us to work with you on this webinar today.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say, so you got an easy job then.
Very easy.
Yeah. And it's great to be with Nicola today. So Nicola, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for the invite. I'm feeling the newbie here, but it's great to be part of the crew. So thank you for asking me along. So yeah, Nicola MacDonald-Dodin, based in the UK, have moved about a fair bit, spent a lot of time in France actually, which is probably one of the countries that we'll come up against today discussing their particular scenario. And I lead international transformation and growth at Alight for our business. So for those that don't know, we're a leading technology and services company, very much focused on HR and payroll. And that's an industry I've been involved in for more than 25 years, so a long time, and been with Alight for nearly 14 in various manifestations. And my role is really focused on what our clients need to fulfill their strategic goals. So quite often, I'm having conversations with customers about them needing to expand globally and how they do that. And payroll, Alight, we have more than 180 countries where we've got solutions for payroll, etc. But it's a different picture in every single location, and how you navigate through all that is something I know we're going to delve into today.
That makes life interesting, doesn't it? I can imagine there's not one day that's the same.
Never is, but that's part of the job, and why we all love it. So
well, thank you. So before we start, just to let you know, the webinar is being recorded, the slides will be available, and we would like it to be interactive. So if you do have any questions, please pop in the chat or in the Q&A. So Nicola, why are we here today?
Yeah, effectively, I think we're here today just to look at the topic of global expansion. There's many reasons that organisations want to expand into new locations. There are many opportunities, and I think it's right to be excited about that, with new emerging markets and kind of the global economic orders changing a bit now, isn't it? It's always in a state of evolution. And there might be examples where you want to like test the waters in a new location, or you might have a skills shortage, which I know we'll come on to in some detail in a minute. But we should be able to be agile and pivot into new places. But of course, there are a lot of considerations to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and that you can satisfy all the regulatory administrative functions and look after your employees, most importantly, in those new regions as well. So that's what we're going to be focused on today.
Thank you. So if you've joined our webinars before, you know I do love a poll. So we've got our first poll today. So what we'd like to know is, are you planning to expand into new countries? So it's a nice, easy one. Yes or no. So yes, within 24 months, no. What do you think is going to be the winner on this one?
Well, I was just trying to click yes. GP, we expand into new countries every year, so we've got several. So I was trying to click yes, but we can't.
No, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to.
I would imagine it's, given the audience and the topic, we'd be looking at about 70-80% of participants saying yes.
Hope. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think, Melanie?
Well, unfortunately, I can see the results.
Oh,
so I could really cheat. If I didn't see the results, I would go towards your end.
Yeah.
So I always have this like magic number where I like a percentage over 70% to answer. So if you haven't answered, could you just I don't know what the word is, but if you could answer, that would be fabulous, and we'll just stop it shortly. While we're just waiting for people to answer, would you like to put into the chat box what have you found the most complex country to expand into? Because I think that would be a really interesting to understand that. So I'm gonna stop the poll. Are you ready then? Okay. So this is actually I'm actually surprised.
Yeah.
Does it surprise you also? So we've got a proper, you know, pretty much down the line, 56% yes within 24 months. So I think that's, maybe if we'd asked maybe 4 years ago, it wouldn't have been as high as that.
Maybe. And I wonder as well, Mel, what is the challenge? What is the reason for the no's? Is it because people are, you know, companies are looking further afield and it's not the 24 months, you know, our companies looking to do more due diligence themselves? So it'd be interesting to understand what why some people have said no. Is there something actually putting them off in terms of going into a different country? So if any of you who voted no, I would be really interested to understand what the nuance behind that is, really.
Yeah, because that's like a geeky thing, isn't it, that I would like to know.
With you.
Yeah, because it is really interesting, isn't it? So we've got some here, the USA and New York, very difficult to settle and set up the office, benefits and understand their employment law. So we've just done some expansion, so hence no for us, but they have already done it. France incorporation. And Nepal. Yeah, I can imagine Nepal's actually quite hard to. Yeah, well, I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, so if you do feel like you can, I think you can put it anonymously, the reason why. I think no, but okay. So what are some of the factors that are causing today's global skill shortage? We had the Great Resignation, didn't we? Towards up to the beginning of this year, we were still talking about it, but now I think all we're hearing about is a global skills shortage, and I think it's worrying a lot of people. So Kathryn, why is this happening? What's going on there?
Okay, leave me look into my crystal ball. I think some of this is you know, just trying to thread the needle a little bit, but I think from what we are seeing, you know, certainly in terms of GP and what our customers are saying, you know, there's definitely a change in demographics. I mean, we've got, you know, the retiring baby boomers, as they were called, leaving huge talent gaps. We've got, you know, talent gaps in terms of millennials, Gen Z. You know, people are being really selective in terms of the roles that, they want to take on, but also the terms of that. And I think, since, and I still use the C word, COVID, we are still, obviously we're coming out of that, but I think, a lot of employees were looking for that remote work. But it's moved on from that now. It's hybrid, or it's remote, and it's something else, and it's something else. So people are being extremely selective as to the terms of how they want to work, rather than what it used to be: get a job, do what is dictated to by companies. So I think companies are certainly seeing differences in that regard. So I think, when companies are looking at, job roles, I genuinely think they need to pivot their thought process in terms of what they're actually looking for, and compromise as to what they're willing to accommodate. And that is totally alien compared to where we were, 3-4 years ago. So I think that is a big standout issue that we are seeing. AI, automation, we've got, companies have had to diversify, and, as I mentioned, pivot with regards to supply chain issues. So the need for AI has significantly increased rather. And, we're seeing it everywhere. I can't, click on, not so much a webinar, but, a new legal paper or a new publication without there being something to do with AI. And I think that we are going to continue to see that increase, but also we are going to see, certainly from a European Union perspective, regulation put in place. So this AI thing, as I said a couple of months ago, beginning of the year, actually, this AI thing isn't going away. It is for sure staying. And we as leaders of companies, we need to learn quite quickly about what AI can do for us. Otherwise, we're going to miss the boat. So that is a huge standout reason that we hear our customers saying as to why they feel that there's some issues for them in terms of hiring. Other reasons we see for talent shortages is rising labor costs. There are companies are offering higher salaries to compete but can't really afford them. So we are seeing lots of companies that are increasing salaries, but then within a 12-month period, having to do a reduction in force, or redundancies are even closed because they've not they've not done the best strategic they've not made the best strategic decisions for their business, and things have not gone well for them. There's also salary battles. You've got people really pushing for certain salaries in roles that are, they don't go together. They're totally misaligned, and that is causing issues for companies, because obviously they want to compete for the talent, but it is resulting in companies having to go over and above their comfort levels when it comes to what they want to pay, and that causes another issue. So if you've already got an established workforce and you're hiring new people in, the chances are the new people that you're bringing in could be earning higher than some of your senior management people. And that I read an article a couple of weeks ago on that, actually, that there were some tribunal cases in the UK. There's a couple of things going on over in the European region where that is becoming an issue as well. And obviously that opens up litigation floodgates for companies in regards to that. So it is something to be careful of. Retention, I think this feeds back into some of the legacy issues that we have seen from COVID, where people are really genuinely trying to renegotiate their terms of employment. They're not really liking the way that they work, the way that they worked prior to the pandemic, and they've seen that all these people are coming in with all new terms and conditions, and they're going off for a 2-hour lunch to do a hot yoga session, and you've got other people in in the office that are chained to their desk, so it seems. So you know, you have got people either resigning, looking for greener grass elsewhere, or just trying to renegotiate, and that is becoming problematic for some companies. And then again, you know, shortages of reliance on unskilled workers. You've got you know, low output, poor quality work, negative impact on company profits, which is, you know, when you are relying on unskilled workers, it becomes difficult then to try and train those unskilled workers in how to forge a career in that company. So it is that there's a number of things that are feeding into, you know, the issues that we are seeing in regards to the global skills shortage.
Nicola, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good roundup as well. It's really interesting to see, especially, you know, bringing people in as well on higher salaries and better terms and conditions maybe than employees that have been loyal to you. You can just see the storm that's building up there. I think in general, it's kind of an employees market at the moment, and that people are wanting a lot more of a purpose. I think that, you know, the pandemic, back to the C word again with COVID, but I think a lot of people are re-examining what they want out of that professional relationship as well with their employer. And there needs to be a real emphasis on well-being, employee well-being, and it not just being about a relationship of pure pay. But that's probably a topic for another webinar. But, you know, I think the fact is that we have to recognize that employees in general want to work fewer hours, or in a compressed way maybe. You know, I myself work a compressed week. That's brilliant, because that's been for me a way that I can facilitate maybe caregiving responsibilities, you know, quality of life issues. And I think we'll see a lot more of that as well. But coming back to really the shortage in skills, it's not going to get better anytime soon as well. You know, we've seen a very low birth rate for the past few decades, so we're going to get hit by that as those baby boomers go off and retire. There won't be people to kind of step into those roles. And I read recently that there's a new Corn Ferry survey, and I was blown away in that it said by 2030 there'll be more than 85 million jobs that are unfilled, because there simply aren't enough skilled people to take on the roles. You know, that's huge. And although AI, and it's the great kind of buzz at the moment around that and the automation, and I really think there are many factors of it we should embrace, there are certain things it can never replace. You know, the emotional intelligence, the empathy, those people skills that we really need in the marketplaces in so many professions. So, you know, ultimately, I think that it's going to be very challenging for organisations to find the skilled people that they need in their organisation readily in the coming months and probably years.
I think it's more that employees have so much choice now, really, that employers also need to understand that before the C word, it was very much employer made the decision on how people would work. That has totally flipped, and companies need to understand that.
Definitely. And I think, you know, we've seen, you know, in the news, you know, the bigger companies that are really grappling with going back to the office and really trying to, you know, demand that employees. I think that's some of the words that have, it's been used in some articles over the last couple of months. Certainly early summer, you know, late spring, where companies were demanding that employees go back into the office. It's not going to work, unfortunately, you know, because, you know, if you want to work, you know, with your employees, and request kindly that they come back into the office and work with them as to what changes, you know, as a company you can make and you can accommodate in order to, you know, get employees back into an office environment, then fine. But demanding and asserting certain rights is not going to wash in the current market, for sure.
It did make me smile when I saw those releases, because I just thought, I just don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, who am I with that crystal ball? But I just don't think that's going to work. So, and
yeah, Sorry, just to cut across you. And why would it? I mean, you know, we've demonstrated as a you know, in the business world generally that we can accommodate, you know, a very difficult situation. Obviously the pandemic was horrific for so many people, and you know, why wouldn't we want to be a flexible employer? I still don't understand. I know there's a need. I know some companies cannot do it for various reasons. But just because it's been done for the last however many centuries, you know, we've had to work in offices and work in a specific location, doesn't mean we should do that going forward. I mean, I still struggle to get my head around that type of narrative. Sorry for talking over you.
No, that's all right. No, it's good, because you know, I have to say I agree with you. So, but you know, what is the solution then? So, is global hiring the solution for companies grappling with skills shortages? Is that the way around it? Kathryn, over to you on this one.
I think it is for some companies, not for all, because it just depends on the industry, really. If you're a highly regulated industry like pharmaceutical, banking, finance, you know, you would struggle to, I wouldn't say struggle is the wrong word. You would have hurdles to overcome in order to, you know, hire outside of your specific jurisdiction. So you would you'd have to, you know, get specific regulations in specific countries, and that can be extremely problematic for highly regulated companies. However, for the vast majority of companies, there are no regulations for them, as you know, in order for them to carry out their business. So therefore, and again, this is another, you know, mindset pivot, is, you know, where we getting people are wanting to change their terms and conditions, their working environment, which is a totally different thought process. Where you hire is another difference in, you know, from another difference that should be considered, because, you know, the global market has opened up to all companies, in my view. And I know I speak from GP, and we are an employer of record globally, but you know, we are seeing customers totally change their thought processes in terms of hiring internationally. And the fundamental thing, and you know, I've spoken about it for many years, you know, when you hire globally, you are able to hire and access talent across the world. I mean, some countries, they specifically invest in talent pockets, we call them. So, you know, for example, in Israel, back within the last 5 years, actually, I can't remember the exact year, but within the last 5 years, they heavily invested into the tech industry, and specifically engineers. So they were offering university students financial grants in order to take in order to carry out university degrees, then, if you like, or undertake university degrees and be qualified as an engineer. We've now got customers that know about that, and you know, with our help, we can, you know, if we see if we know about these talent pockets, then we can advise customers. But we've got customers coming to us specifically to get access to that specific talent pocket in a country. You know, you've also got the ability to try and, you know, tap into markets that you wouldn't have been able to have done previously. So, you know, that will help, you know, the talent pool. That will help, you know, you get access to highly qualified and highly skilled individuals, and really start building the infrastructure of your business. But that can be done abroad. Does it actually need to be done in this country? Chances are no. You know, and on top of that, you know, another positive aspect of this is the diversification of your workforce. You will have, you know, people from all over the world with totally different insights that feed off each other, that benefit each other, that help each other, and therefore your business will, you know, will become better for it and more competitive for sure. Again, in terms of, you know, building companies, you know, when you do diversify your workforce, you have, you know, viewpoints and perspectives from so many different areas, and it still blows me away today. You know, I manage a team of of lawyers around EMEA, and we always have brainstorming sessions because, you know, I love to hear all the different thoughts and the different viewpoints from different people to overcome a problem or overcome, you know, a specific issue. What's everybody's, you know, I really want to hear what everybody's thoughts are on this specific issue. How can we overcome it? And when you see natural evolution in that regard, it's priceless. You know, and companies will prosper in that regard, not only from obviously getting, you know, specific talent to fill those buckets of shortages that they've got, but also, you know, when you've got different perspectives and different knowledge, it's incredible to see the growth of companies, and we are seeing it with our customers, which is fantastic.
Nicola, over to you. Are there sort of any cases or anything that you've come across with regards to this?
Yeah, and I think, you know, to your point, Kathryn, I wholeheartedly agree, you know, on that richness that a diverse team can bring as well. I think it's a great benefit. I think that there are times when you need local input that has to be drawn from in-country specialists or somebody who's at least lived in that country, you know, for a while and has a really great awareness of the situation or the skill set that's required. And in our own example at Alight, we build payroll technology, obviously for our customers around the world. And there are some countries where we need to hire individuals who are specialists in that country because we just wouldn't be able to find that skill set anywhere else in the world. So, you know, it's as simple as that. It's just absolutely impossible. And that can be just a couple of individuals. So we've had to manage that through an EOR provider in that way as well. And that's been brilliant for us to be able to pivot really quickly as well and to hire at speed. So that is one way. And I think also, you know, you've got to bear in mind that it's not just getting new talent into your organization, but also as a retention mechanism. So, you know, we could decide we want to go and live in Bali, quality of life. Why not? Our skills are still the same. We're going to work in another location. And if your employer can facilitate that, well, you're much more likely to stick with them than you are to go and work for someone else. You know, they've got that comfort. So there's considerations like that as well as a retention mechanism.
So now you got me thinking of working in a really lovely location.
And why not?
I'm going to let you into a little secret. So GP, we expand every year in many different countries, and every year I look at the list to see where I could try and put a business reason together as to why I should pop across to a warmer climate for a couple of months. It never works, but
it never works.
Maybe one day. So Nicola, before we joined today's webinar, we were talking about I was talking about having people working in different countries for me. And initially it was a little bit strange for me, but it got well, it's now really familiar, and it's really nice to have people with different cultures working with the GPA. So it does come with many challenges, but what compliance obstacles do businesses commonly encounter when going global?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, you need a legal entity to go into any country, or an employer of record solution. So that's one. And setting up a legal entity it's a difficult process, no matter where that is in the world. I don't think there's any country where it's easy or cheap to do. And it's difficult because it's unique in each territory as well to navigate through that. You know, there are organizations. I remember setting up our presence in Germany a few years ago, and there were organizations, I think the one we used was something like Invest in Frankfurt, which gave us a bit of guidance, etc. But you need to be really aware of what you're entering in, and often the linguistic difficulties alone are a big barrier to that. Okay, so I think forewarned is forearmed. So you need to be really au fait with labour laws in the country, hiring, termination processes, you know, all the things that you would commonly need to go through when you're hiring people or retaining them, benefits packages, statutory holiday pay, pension schemes, need to keep a paper trail. You know, in France, you need to keep a paper trail for more than 20 years for certain documents. There's other countries like China where you need to have a wet signature. Things like this, you just don't know off the top of your head, and you really need an input, I think, of specialist advice. And you need to be very aware of all the data protection regulations and accessing software either outside the country. China is another example where you can't look at certain systems when you're about Chinese employees when you're out of that territory as well. So, you know, there's all these little nuances, working hours, breaks, overtime, how you track the holidays, sick pay, all the various types of absences. And I think, you know, we're seeing more and more regulations within Europe as well, and reporting obligations, you know, gender pay gap now front of mind. So you can be very aware at the beginning, get yourself well informed as well, but don't think it's a static picture. It will evolve. So make sure that you're regularly evaluating your responsibilities in any territory as well. Yeah,
that's great advice. Always reviewing is such a good bit of advice, isn't it? Don't just set it up, it's sorted. Always review. It's
not a one-time process. It's got to be continuous. It's my view.
Yeah. Kathryn, what about your thoughts on this?
So just following on from what Nicola, what you've just said, I mean, it's really important to be very selective in terms of the partners that you use in country as well. And we found that, you know, having good third-party advisors that will, you know, jump on a change in the law, or, you know, will advise you of something ahead of time so you can make those decisions is absolutely vital. And you will need those in-country specialists, as Nicola mentioned. It's fundamental to the setup of any entity. An additional thing to be aware of is tax. Tax is huge, and even when you have you know, third-party payroll providers, as a business, you have to be aware of what your corporate tax position is. So make sure that you're aware of it. And laws change very, very quickly, much quicker than I had thought prior to coming to GP, for sure. So, you know, make sure that you are aware of your tax obligations from an employee and corporate point of view. Collective bargaining agreements, you know, they are significant across, you know, majority of EMEA. You know, there's a handful of countries that don't recognise them, but be aware of the fact, or start thinking about, is this a country that has a collective bargaining agreement? I'm just going to call out a couple of countries. Finland, you've got so many CBAs. It's very similar to Australia, where you've got, I think it's over 100 and something CBAs in Australia. Finland, you've got a significant amount of CBAs to try and trawl through to see what would be applicable to your business. Chances are there is one there, so make sure that you're aware of it. Get advice and make sure that that is the right CBA that you know, applies to your company. So, you know, also in Spain, you've got different CBAs for different regions. I think in Spain you've got something like 15 CBAs, and they're all different. They will all deal with different working hours, different vacation, salary, you know, all different things. So make sure that you're aware of those CBAs before you hire. And if you hire in different regions within a country, so if you hire, you know, you hire in the Balearics in Spain, but then you also hire, you know, in Madrid, you will need different CBAs. So just make sure that you are aware of the obligations, which will come into, you know, the employment laws that Nicola mentioned. Understanding the employment contracts, they go hand in hand with the employment contracts. And if you fall down, it is a costly exercise. So make sure that you are aware of these before you even issue an employment contract. That's generally what we do here at GP. Another big thing that is having traction across Europe is, and there's a number of reasons why, mainly because it's in the press a lot, is the misclassification of contractors. I know that there's been a number of cases in the UK. There's been cases in Central Europe with regards to individuals who are working or assigned as a contractor, but in reality they are employees. So make sure that you're aware of that, because again, that is a very costly exercise. If you get that, if you get a misclassification wrong, and also there's potential criminal charges in some countries. So as a director, you have to really sit up and understand what are your obligations as a director, but obviously then what it is as a company, because popping off to a holiday in a country could, you know, if you've done something incorrectly by one of your employees, and the authorities have sanctioned criminal charges, you might not be coming home anytime soon. So you need to be fully aware of what your obligations are, and that isn't a scare tactic. That does happen. There are some issues happening in France at the moment that's recently been in the media, where individual directors have been criminally sanctioned, and you know, they're now in prison. Some of them are, not all of them. So make sure that you're aware of your responsibilities.
Kathryn, we've had a question. What is a CBA?
Collective bargaining agreement. So you've got an employment contract, and then you've got, so your employment contract has all the terms and conditions. A collective bargaining agreement is usually it usually forms part of a unionized agreement. So if it's a country where you've got a significant recognition of unions, chances are you will have a collective bargaining agreement that the unions have agreed with certain industries, and that will form the CBA will hold additional terms and conditions, if you like, or additional rules that employers need to adhere to in order to employ an individual. I hope that is clear.
Yeah. That's great. Nicola, well, compliance is huge, isn't it? What's your thoughts?
I think Kathryn again has captured most of them, but don't be caught out with things that you might not be aware of, like these kind of obvious things about the regulatory, you know, kind of framework, but also we see quite a lot of different ones within relating to payments, so actually paying of employees. So for example, Spain and France, it's a legal obligation that you have to give your employee an advance of their salary before the pay date if they request that. So you need to be able to facilitate that. And then in places like South Africa, for example, an employer has got the right up until the 7th day of the following month to pay that employer. So if they've run out of money a bit, they've got a few days to juggle. So, you know, there's all these like local nuances as well. We're not here to scare people, you know, as I said about being forearmed is forewarned, but just make sure that you do your research and that you're tracking it all as well, like the compliance piece, that you have people assigned to each aspect of that and you regularly revisit.
Charlotte put a comment on here to say you need to get a great local accountant and payroll manager. And from my perspective, I have to agree with you. It took me a while to get a good accountant. So I never thought that would be one of the biggest issues, but finding a good accountant became one of the biggest issues, I think, from starting up a business. So thank you for your comment on that, Charlotte. So I think compliance is one of the biggest issues that we have within the payroll industry. Kathryn, can you share a few best practices that can help minimise legal risks? Because the amount of times we've heard from GPA members when all of a sudden they've been surprised because they've had some sort of fine or they've got to pay some money to, you know, some local government.
I mean, number one, I learnt from a matter that I read up on and reached out to our local council in Spain to see if it was true. But you're always going to have those situations where you find out something hasn't been paid or you weren't aware of something. And what I'm talking about in Spain, the government is using AI to look for incorrect tax filings, incorrect salary filings, and the fine is about €50, but they're using AI to actually look for disparity in terms of filings, which I thought was, I read about this and I was like, this can't be true. The government is actually going looking for money, but it is actually happening. So AI is on the up, unfortunately. So I mean, when you know, we think about best practices, I mean, you know, we've discussed a couple of them. So you know, make sure that you are thoroughly researching and doing your due diligence. Nicola, I know that you mentioned that, and understanding local laws and cultural norms is a huge miss. Companies don't really give due consideration to cultural norms, and they can, you know, really impact your business if you don't get it, if you don't understand it. And you know, industry specific rules are also going to play a part, so make sure that you understand that, and then that will link in potentially to a CBA. Are you governed, is your industry governed by a CBA? Understand that CBA, what you can and can't do with regards to employees. They might have different working hours, for example. We've mentioned engage local experts. That is huge. That is top priority usually for GP when we are expanding into other countries, is make sure that we are you know, content with our legal experts, because they are there to guide us through all of the, you know, all of the issues that come up in a country. Make sure that compliance is one of the top 5 on your list from the outset. I'd say top 3 personally, but not everyone is with me on that. Compliance is a fundamental benefit to any company, and if you don't have a good compliance framework from the start, your company is always going to be looking behind it, trying to backtrack, trying to get ahead of itself, and because the laws change all the time. And if you are looking to get, you know, quite a big footprint in a number of countries, compliance is top 2. Part of that, regular audits. I think that is a good practice as well. Just carry out regular audits. We do here at GP. We do that regularly, just so that we know, you know, that we are where we need to be, and then we can start working on trying to get ahead in certain countries where we know that there are legal changes coming. I would also say try and monitor regulatory changes. Now, sometimes that can come from external providers, but also as a business, you do need to try and keep on top of certain changes, because that can have an impact on your market. So, for example, in Europe, we've got changes. You know, we've got changes laid down by the European Union, which can impact a market. We've recently seen, you know, the regulations come in with regards to e-cigarettes. You know, that had a huge impact on that market. And you know, we are going to see regulations with regards to AI. That is going to, you know, we are going to see an impact there as well. And there does need to be regulations. You know, I agree with the regulations that come in those regards, but make sure that you are aware of what is coming down the line, just so you can stay ahead of the curve, and that it doesn't impact your business to a detrimental level.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I just had myself on mute. You nearly had to say, Mel, you're on mute. So Nicola, oh, am I on me? Sorry, I've lost my...
No, it's fine. We were just talking about the due diligence, etc., that you need to undertake. And I think from my perspective, just one thing to add there, that it's a false economy not to pay for specialist input here, because the consequences, as we're going to hear about in a moment, can be so huge. And also don't hesitate to, you know, link into organisations like local business groups as well, mainly for smaller organisations, but just to get a feel for what's happening in your particular industry. But it really will be very, very valuable to put your trust in local advisors as well, or people who are specialists in global, you know, expansion in businesses.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I lost my way there. You could tell, couldn't you?
No, it's keeping it real.
I know, I'm definitely keeping it real.
Yeah.
So we're coming up, so we've got about 15 minutes left of the webinar. So what are the potential repercussions and consequences of, in the event of non-compliance?
So we've touched quickly on criminal sanctions. That is obviously a personal liability on directors and sometimes legal representatives of companies. The other things, for non-compliance, you've got, cost is a fundamental thing. Whether that's trying to defend lawsuits, whether that's trying to retroactively put in place what authorities tell you to. And also you're paying your employees to deal with this on the back end. So from a commercial point of view, it is a significant cost. You've got business disruption, reputational damage. You can even have your business closed down. So all of that work, all of that investment that you've put into that business has been for a government to close you down because of a non-compliance issue. So make sure that the things that we've been talking about are at the top of your list when you are looking at expansion. We've only got to look at some of the things that have been in the press recently. You've got JP Morgan, they were fined $200 million USD for record keeping violations. I mean, they didn't do what they needed to do in that regard. So, that is a very costly issue for them. So I think from a compliance point of view, and I'm just obviously conscious of time, the impact to companies if you get these things wrong is absolutely significant, and it shouldn't be underplayed in any capacity.
Okay, so we're coming on to one of my favourite subjects, really. What are the common difficulties of managing payroll in multiple countries and currencies? I could do a whole webinar on this, Nicola.
You're probably much better qualified than me, so do add to this. But in summary, I think it's visibility and the understanding of your spend and things as basic as your global employee numbers. You would be amazed how many customers don't know that. So it's really important, if possible, that you have the technology, and this exists now, where we have a platform where you can connect all those different payroll systems, and that gives you a real understanding of all your metrics, what's going on where, and that gives you much more information to make those right decisions as well. In terms of paying in different currencies, etc., there's all the arrangements with payment services, treasury that needs to be set up, so that's a consideration as well. But it depends. Some countries are a lot more complex than others in terms of their payroll needs and obligations, like the reporting back. We've done a global payroll complexity index, which is a biannual report that Alight produce. I think we're going to have a quick survey on this as well later. We're going to have a question and see what everybody thinks. But just as a little snippet, in that we rank the top 40 countries with the most complex in the top 10, and 9 out of 10 of those are in Europe. So that's food for thought as well. But that we really look at the tax regulations, the mandatory deductions, social security contributions, and reporting as well. So you can see where the pockets, and I think we've mentioned the particular country that lands in the top spot is a number of times in this webinar already today. I saw somebody mention that they'd established themselves in Italy earlier on in the webinar, in the chat as well, and that's the 4th most complex country globally. So well done for sticking around with that as well. But greater value and opportunity comes with expansion as well. So as we've talked about before, this is not insurmountable, not at all. We're just trying to make sure that you have that knowledge so that you go in with your eyes open to everything that you need to consider to make an informed judgment.
And we have heard from the GPA side that people, when they've maybe gone into a global role or a new global company, that people aren't aware of employee numbers. So we've heard that many times. It's surprising, isn't it? But I suppose with M&A going on,
of course,
details get lost.
And actually, M&A is something we've not touched on today, but that might be an example where you're acquiring a company and you want to get rid of close out that legal entity, open one in a new name, and that's another consideration as well, where you'd need to get really au fait with what are the considerations in that locality too. So plenty of food for thought.
Yeah, Kathryn, have you got anything to add to this at all?
I mean, we've touched on the complexity, the constant change, and also, I think my biggest advice is, you've got, companies that we're talking about them, we've got the best ones on, on this webinar. So, you've got companies that can really assist you. So just, select your third-party provider and have them work with you so that you can learn and the business can grow. So that you don't have to do all of this complex stuff that we're talking about. That is one thing that I would say does work. And we are seeing a lot of companies that are closing down their global footprint and using EOR providers. And that is something that was a change that we didn't foresee, really. We didn't see coming, but and that just allows the company then just to be more cognizant of the strategic scale that they want, where they want to grow and how they want to grow, rather than growing organically. Growing strategically is better for the business in some cases, some companies say. So those are the only things that I would really add to that.
Okay. Ian's added multiple languages and currencies create longer reporting times.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our last poll. Right, I feel like I'm an old person doing this with technology, but I'm going to launch this one. So this is another geeky one for me. What is the most complex country to process payroll in? You should be able to scroll up and down. There's 10 answers. So if you can't see them all, if you just scroll, and if a country is not on there, you can add them in on the chat. So it'd be interesting to see what you think. I don't think Belgium's on there, and Belgium always comes up for me.
That would have been mine, Belgium.
It's in the top 10. I can tell you that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It is in the top 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just leave it a couple more seconds because we're coming. Well, we're not running out of time just yet, but we're coming towards the end. We want to see what you think. If you haven't answered, give it a go. I need to find out the word. I find it satisfying when we get to that's the word. Is that a bit geeky? I think that's really geeky. Maybe I'm telling you too much about myself, that how I find it satisfying when we get to 70%. So we're nearly there. Come on. Okay, right. So I'm going to shut it down in a couple of seconds. Thank you so much. It makes my day so sad. Okay, I'm going to end it. What do you reckon? Well, you guys know, the answer. Kathryn, do you know the answer to this survey?
I'm going to say France.
Okay. So these are the results. Can you see the results? So we've got China 12, Slovakia 4, Canada 2, Italy 12, Switzerland 2, Germany 12, France 46, United States 12. Go on then, Nicola.
France, yeah, we've got a
very informed audience, clearly. So yeah, France is the most complex, and it's actually increased by 10% of complexity.
Wow.
Compared to the previous report 2 years ago. So it is not getting any easier to navigate through. Yeah, France is.
Watch this space. You'll have
this space. Yeah,
payrollers pulling their hair out.
Exactly. Yeah. But I noticed a few comments in the chat as well. Germany's also is second there as well, and you can get access to this full report. Yes, I've seen Sue's comment. Will we be sharing it? We can absolutely share. And actually also there's a tool as well, so you can do a quick survey to see how complex your payroll is as well, which is quite a nice evaluation. Switzerland was third, Italy, Canada, that's the only country outside of Europe, Poland, Turkey's come into the top 10 from the 2021. That's gone up 36 points. It was like a Eurovision here. And then we've got the Netherlands as well at number 8, and Belgium we touched on, and Slovakia as well. So
somebody's also mentioned Spain. We had a membership meeting.
Yeah, now
Spain's
number 15, and it's actually decreased in complexity, but that might not be the personal experience that audience member has been having. Might not have felt that it has got easier, but yeah, it has actually come down. But absolutely, we can share the report. It's very insightful, and you can learn more about how we measure and evaluate.
So we're just coming to the end. So we have one last question. So we've got less than 5 minutes. What are the key areas companies must consider to effectively manage international payroll? Nicola, do you want to briefly answer this one first, and we'll move on to Kathryn?
Yeah, I think we touched on many of these already. I don't know, Kathryn, if you wanted to add anything more.
I think, to effectively manage payroll is using third-party providers like an EOR, a global payroll platform. That is the best thing to do, because these companies have done all of this work for you, so you can just sit back and grow your business effectively. But no, I agree with you, Nicola. I think we've covered a lot of it just in the discussion on the top 10 countries. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, sorry, go on, Melanie.
No, sorry, I'm just thinking of time. Should organisations contemplate their decisions more thoroughly before opting to establish their operations in these nations, in the above nations?
Yeah, in the ones that are
in the top 10. I think, these are technologically mature markets as well, and any company operating there should be ready to adapt. But there are great rewards to be had, as I touched on before, rich opportunities. Knowledge is power. Make an informed decision, take advice, perhaps test out the market with just a few employees initially before you commit to making that big spend of setting up a legal entity. And you can do that through an EOR solution. But absolutely embrace it where you think that's going to bring a new revenue stream for your business, and obviously that richness to your workforce as well, as you have a more diverse employee population. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Kathryn, before we leave, have you got anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think we've covered so much in this webinar. Again, just don't be scared. There's great providers out there. Trust them and work with them so that you can build your business.
So Nicola, I would like to know one thing, if possible. What's the least complex countries? Where should we all be moving to?
Well, Saudi Arabia,
right,
is number 40. So that's the least complex, but it didn't appear last time on the report. So that's a new entrant. Japan's actually only at 38, and that's gone down 29 points. So, and Hong Kong as well. But there are a lot of new emerging countries as well. So keep an eye on. Have a look at the global payroll complexity study and just get an idea, of the different considerations as well.
So what I'll do is once we upload the recording and the slides, I'll also add a link. So I'll add a link to the complexity survey, but also the tool that you can also use.
Excellent.
We have got a banner on the GPA Live website that you can go to, but I put it all in one place so that everyone can get to it. So thank you both. It's been a really nice afternoon. Really enjoyed my hour. Is there one bit of advice that you would give people before we leave, just to put you all on the spot?
It's not so much advice, but if anybody wants to continue the conversation or email me any questions, I know we weren't able to get to all the questions in chat today. I'm very happy to have a email discussion or a chat.
Fabulous. Kathryn, just don't be scared.
Yeah, don't be scared, lean into it. There's much more benefit for companies to expand globally than not. And it could be the making of your business. So why would you not?
Okay then, well, thank you so much. As Nicola said, you can get in contact with her on LinkedIn, or you can always contact myself and I can forward Nicola's email address. And again, the same for Kathryn. So Kathryn, thank you so much for coming today, and I look forward to our next webinar, hopefully in a couple of months.
That's great. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.